Hello, Cheeseheads, and welcome to the Cheeseman Podcast YouTube show. This is not the caller, this is Brendan. Caller's learned that running a supermarket during Christmas is apparently a lot of work. So he's taking the evening off and he's left you in my capable hands. Let's go around the room. We've got three amazing guests joining me tonight. First up from Vienna, it's HG. How you doing, mate?
Three amazing guests, and then you're going to invent someone else. No, I'm all right. It's the Friday before Christmas. Well, I mean, for us, because next Friday is Christmas here, so it works. But I'm all right. I'm doing all right.
So do they do the 24th thing in Austria as well? Yeah, same in Brazil. I guess it's cool. Like if you're a kid, it's cool because you get the presents a bit earlier. But
No,
to me,
the best thing, as I tell everyone here, is that because it's the evening of the 24th here, you invite your family over, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, they eat, and then they bugger off. Right? They don't have all day to hang around drinking sherry or whatever your grandma used to do. And they go home. And the 25th is like you wake up, you don't have to get up at 7 in the morning. Right? It's nice and peaceful. You've got the whole day. It's great. I much prefer the way they do it here, although we do a bit of both, obviously, because it's a bit weird when my daughter's trying to learn what the Christkind is. And no, Santa does that. No, but the Christkind does it. Oh, yeah, that's what you're learning at kindergarten. Yes, the Christkind, of course. It's all a bit confusing. But she gets presents, so she doesn't care.
Is that like an alternative to Santa Claus? Is that the Austrian Santa Claus?
Honestly, even after being here 15 years, I'm still not really sure. But there is kind of like this. It's like Santa's little helper, who's this. I want to say girl, but it might be a boy. I don't really know. But yeah,
it should be a girl, for fairness.
Yeah, no, but I think the thing is, Vienna used to have the official yearly Christkind, and it was always a girl playing a boy, kind of like pantomime. I don't really know, but yeah. So if there's anyone from Austria watching, I'm sorry, I haven't learned that yet. But
Wicked. Well, thanks for joining, HG. Also joining from Sydney, Australia. It looks bright and early there as it's turning night here. Is Dave, not Davo? How you doing, mate?
Very, very well. Lovely to be back on. It's going to be 29 degrees today. Blue sky. Might replicate the Ashes with my boys downstairs this morning. I'll be England. They'll be Australia. So I'll last about 3 balls.
We want to play with like hands behind your back and blindfolded and to try fully replicate the performance.
Yeah, like the England openers, correct.
Exactly. Well, mate, we thankfully this is a football podcast. Even though there's no football to really talk about, well, there's a game to look forward to, probably. Also joining from the South Coast is John. How you doing, mate?
Hello, good evening. Good morning, Davo. And there's no cricket. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not happening. Nor did 4 years ago. No. Yeah, I've had my booster jab this week, so a little bit tired, a little bit achy. Not as bad as Shan. She's struggling, bless her, after having her booster. Had a bit of a disaster. My laptop broke, so I'm on my daughter's laptop. And my picture frame broke as well. So I've sort of had to stick this here on a box on my new freezer, which has got ice for my drinks, which is quite handy. And apparently we might play football on Sunday. Touch wood.
Did you get really stressed and throw your computer at the window, at the frame? Is that what happened?
Do you know what? I went to open it last night. I hadn't used it since Monday's show, and the screen was just buggered. I had some workmen in to fit some new skirting boards. I don't know if they put something on it or what, but Amazon. It was an Amazon job, so it's going back to Amazon. Refund is going in to my dad, who got it for me for my birthday. So new one's been ordered, so it should all be good.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, it's always good to get a nice new computer. It's great. It's a really therapeutic feeling. That sounded weird. Anyway, we have a game to talk about, probably. So the game against Liverpool is going ahead by all accounts. Conte had his press conference today, said that we are ready to play. We're ready to follow the rules. We saw the training video footage today as well. Saw quite a few of the players that we thought might be out. So, but in any case, Dave, I'll start with you. Should this game be going ahead?
Yes, it should go ahead. If the protocols have been followed, there's enough players who can play the game. On we go. I think the real question is how long will we continue to play with supporters in the stadium? That potentially is the real issue, because it's always the challenge is is if the NHS get overwhelmed by hospitalised cases, then you've got a real problem, and that's the thing. I think what the numbers were before Omicron or whatever it's called is that you get COVID, but the vaccines work in the way that you don't get hospitalised the majority of the time. But with this new one, this is how well the vaccines work. This is all coming from someone who got an F in GCSE biology in 1988. But anyway, so I think the game should go ahead. The question is whether there should be supporters in the ground.
Sounds about right. Hayes G, you agree with that?
Oh well, yeah. My mum's going. She has a ticket, and I know that she wants to go. I know that she'll be really, not just disappointed, but kind of annoyed if it doesn't go ahead, possibly in quite a selfish way. Brent turns the air conditioning on. So I kind of agree with Dave. Like, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but all the games have been behind closed doors here for a good month or so now. We've hit our winter break, but still, it does seem a bit dangerous to get 60-odd thousand in the same place at the same time. I know that the rules are slightly different. I think that my mum's had to fill in some kind of declaration form to get into the stadium on Sunday, not just the usual COVID pass or whatever you want to call it. But it's a weird one because the games are only going to get more and more postponed. I think if the cases increase in the general population, if a football club is lucky enough to avoid massive positives, then great, the games can go ahead. But whether we should have people in the stadium, I think that is the question too.
Yeah, that is a good point, Adrian. Hi, Adrian. Hi, everyone watching as well. Also, please, if you're watching, do give us a like. It really helps the broadcast grow. So please give it a like. I'm no good with this smashing your likes and stuff, but do please give it a like if you enjoy what you're watching. John, on to you. Looking at the game itself, Liverpool played yesterday, so I don't know. Do you think that will be beneficial that they'll probably have tired legs, or the fact that we haven't played in 2 weeks maybe will be sort of game rusty? I mean, do you think there's any benefit to Liverpool playing yesterday and us having that time off?
I think as far as we go, I'm a little bit concerned because obviously although our players were locked in a room for 8 to 10 days or locked in their houses, they obviously have some quite big houses, but they wouldn't be able to train properly. As far as Liverpool goes, playing a game in 3 days isn't a problem. It's just more of a case that they've lost two big players in Fabinho and Van Dijk, and Jones is a good player for them as well. It's whether they lose anyone else, but Klopp definitely wants the game to go ahead. He was interviewed, wasn't he, today? And he was very much, yes, we should keep playing, which surprised me, I have to say. Is it going to be an advantage? I think Liverpool, the players, if they have the same team that played last night, they'll be okay. That front three are still phenomenal, aren't they?
Yeah. Anyone?
I think the weird thing is sorry, just the idea that we've gone 2 weeks without playing, 10 days, whatever it is. I mean, it feels like 3 years, but I know it's not been that long. But had we played every 3 days and Liverpool had played every 3 days, then I think Liverpool would have an advantage because they're the better side. The fact that Liverpool have been playing all the time and we've had some time off to recharge, to whatever, because the players that are out obviously have had COVID. It's not so good for them, but for everyone else, the players that would have been free to train and have been able to do lots of things, it might be a nice bit of rest for them, and maybe we can go full out over we don't know if the West Ham game is going to be played, so maybe we can say, right, we've got 90 minutes ahead of us for the next week or so. We just don't know, but I like the idea of Spurs maybe having a bit of a rest before we play one of the best teams in the country, and certainly one of the biggest games that we have at home.
If I can just go back on that, actually, good points. And the likes of Ndombele, I know let's talk about Dele leaving. These players who are the fringe players, if they didn't have to isolate, would have had a fair bit of time with Conte on the training ground, apart from was it 3 days the training ground was shut for? 3 or 4 days? Yeah. So he would have been able to work with them and get his ideas across, and they will have had a chance to potentially impress him and give him a better chance of getting in the starting lineup. Now, I think having the Leicester game was cancelled, that has helped us, because he was worried that a lot of the players who'd had COVID wouldn't last more than an hour, if that. Whereas they've had extra 3 days to train and get up to speed. I think that will help us.
Dave, on to you. Do you think that the Tongi enjoyed the 2-week break to show Conte what he's got? Do you think that's what he wanted? Sorry, I know he shouldn't knock Tongi, but easy target.
I'm not Tongi. Get rid of him. I mean, it's how many managers he got through now. I was told a story that he believes that the whole side should be built around him, and his input and effort in training is minimal at best. So, we're through 4 managers now. There's another Spurs record buy that hasn't worked out. So we seem to grasp onto this Delhi, Lo Celso, Ndombele life rafts. When they're not playing, they'll be better, they'll improve and things like that. I'd rather play some youngsters who show a bit of fight and aggression and hunger. Ndombele, if we get a loan for him in January and we get someone in to take his place, that's what we should do.
Yeah. Well, we get on to transfers later on. There's some rumours about players coming in, players going out. So we'll get on to that shortly. HG, did you watch the game yesterday? Like, Alexander-Arnold's goal was, I saw it and I immediately thought about Wanyama because what they call it the stayed hit. But Liverpool are in really good form right now, and it should be a good game for your mum to go and see live.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch the Liverpool game. I have seen the goals, but I didn't watch the game. I was watching the final of Survivor 41. For any Americans that are watching, I love Survivor. Yeah, so like we know what Liverpool are, right? I mean, it doesn't appear that they've, apart from Van Dijk and maybe Fabinho, like they haven't really been hit with any issues at all this season. Those two don't play. Because of how they play, it doesn't really seem to affect them too much. I think Konate has been playing at centre half. It's not like last season where they had, their centre backs out for 3 or 4. It felt like certainly 3 or 4 games, but maybe even longer than that. So we know what Liverpool can do. I mean, they've proven it not just in the Premier League, sadly, but also on the European stage against us. And it's not an easy game. Like you know that they'll dominate the ball. You know that they will take chances. And unlike Man City, Liverpool tend to take those chances against Spurs, even if there have been I think last season Firmino was the last-minute winner, and then there was the own goal that Alderweireld had. That was a last-minute thing. So like we've come close, but I think we've come close in the scoreline rather than when it came to performances. We were pretty fluky to come anywhere near getting a point in those games. And at home, it's going to be interesting. Like I don't know how we're going to play. We're all a bit nervous about the back 3 because Davies isn't going to play. That in itself is quite nervy.
He's been training.
Has he been
training today?
Okay, well then then we've got a chance. All we need is Ben at the back, and it is weird because even though Spurs have had pretty decent results under Conte in the league, was it 3 wins and a draw? We all remember the game against Mura, and it kind of affects how you view Spurs right now. Yes, those 4 games, 3 of them were at home. So we not easy games, but still, you want to win your home games. We've got another home game now. It would be nice to get some momentum going into the 4 games a week that we're probably going to have in January at some point. But I don't know. Like Liverpool, I think would take a point. That wouldn't be a bad result for them. But you'd have to think that even if they did get a point, that would be much more disappointing for them than it would be exciting for us.
Cool. I'm going to go on to John, and I'm going to disconnect and reconnect in a sec because I'm using the wrong Wi-Fi. John, looking at Liverpool's team, is there a weakness there? Do we challenge them? Do we sit back and hit them on the counter? Is there how do you see us? Do you see us getting anything from the game? I'm going to jump in and jump out.
Okay. Honestly, I don't think we'll get very much. We might get a draw. I'm just looking at the team from last night. They had Matip and Konate at the back. They still had Joe Gomez on the bench. Robertson, Alexander-Arnold are brilliant fullbacks. We know what they're like. I think the only chance we really got to do is if we can exploit the spaces behind those fullbacks as they push forward. It'd be interesting to see if Reggie plays because defensively, I'd rather Reggie over Sessegnon, and Reggie is due to join the main group tomorrow, I believe, for training. So hopefully he'll be okay. It's a tough one. When we played 3, when Poch played 3 at the back there, he's gone. He very much tried to push Rose and would it have been Walker then or Trippier? Probably Trippier forward. And they just ended up being a back five. And then Robertson had the freedom in the world to cross the ball to put straight on Firmino's head. I think that's the game we lost with the own goal, wasn't it? HG, a couple of years ago.
I think so,
yeah. So they've got our wing backs need to push forward onto their fullbacks. Otherwise, we're going to have all sorts of problems. The issue with that will lead when it'll be 3 against 3 at the back. So whether that means Skip or Højbjerg are going to have to drop back a few times, I don't know. And then our midfield, are they going to get overrun? Obviously, Conte is a very, very intelligent tactical manager, far better than any of us. He will have a plan of how to deal with this. It's just whether the players can put it into practice for him.
I've got a suspicion that Højbjerg's not played. I didn't see him in any of the footage today from training. So that's a bit of a worry there. We may see Mr. Winks in there. So I don't know. HG, do you think that's an issue, that we should have the more sort of 2 defensively minded midfielders, or are you okay with Winks doing what he does?
I would be happy with someone in midfield who I thought could keep the ball under pressure, and that does mean Dave's favourite, Tongi. If I see that Adrian talks about 3-5-2, I can see that. Like, I don't think look, I know Conte probably won't change away from what he's been doing, and someone will come in and take Højbjerg's position, and it probably Winks. Let's be honest, it would probably be him. But I just think that, you know, unless we really intend to try and put them under pressure by making them turn, well, you know, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson and Konate, they've all got pace. Matip is a bit of a donkey, but the idea that we're going to be able to isolate him from a long ball, I just don't see it. So I think we're going to have to play the ball on the ground and you know, simple kind of. I've talked about it on the last show. There was a video that Tifo Football put out about how Spurs like to have kind of a diamond shape with the 3 centre backs, and then Skip becomes the 4th in that diamond, and that's how they move the ball around. That's fine, but we've then got to be able to move past that stage. And we know that Liverpool like to press high. We know that they will be quite happy for our defenders to pass the ball around. So we've got to find a way of getting through that midfield 3 they have, and I don't see us doing it unless Tongi's on the pitch. That might be a bit harsh on Lucas, but is Lucas fit? I don't know. He's not been training either, has he? So
he was in the video today. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So I mean, I just think that there's no point in having pace up front if you can't get the ball to them. And we saw that under Nuno. We saw that under Jose a little bit. We just weren't really able to move the ball forward, and Liverpool will kill you. So I'd like to think that we go a little bit like it's defensive enough because you've got 3 centre backs and the full backs necessary if you want to close things down. But when you do break, that you have runners, that you have someone who can pick the pass and hopefully pick the right pass, so that you can then break with speed. But it's not an easy game because Liverpool are. Not only do they have very good players, but they're extremely well drilled and they know what to do. Klopp's been there for 6 years now. This is not new for them. They don't change the way they play, really.
Yeah. Davo, how about you? I suppose we'd be confident going to this game, but do you think we can get anything out of it? Do you think that we can frustrate them and match them? I was at the Man City game and they play quite similarly to Liverpool. They play in the front foot. They play a possession-based game. And we beat them through them probably being a bit rusty at the beginning of the season and us showing a bit of fight. And do you think with the crowd behind the team that we can get something out of this game against Liverpool?
Look, I think the best scenario is we get a draw. I think that they're a great team and they're going for the title. I think the defence is not as strong as it was a couple of years ago when Van Dijk pre-injury. I think, as has been commented already, the chances that we got is to get behind their fullbacks, wingbacks, and opportunities around that. But we are defensively going to have to be as solid as no mistakes, nothing, and kind of really press them in the midfield and not let them have time on the ball. So I think it's going to be a very tough game. It's look at the 2 games last season. I think the first game at Anfield where we were top, I think we're a little bit unlucky not to get something out of that game. Bergwijn obviously hit the post and was extradited to Siberia, never to be seen again. And then, of course, if you remember the home game where Serge Aurier's finest movement of the season was to walk out the dressing room at half-time and head off down the high road. So, it's going to be tough. A draw, I think, is the best we can hope for.
Yeah, I guess that might be
Hang on a second. That's really cynical, Davo, to say that. Like, clearly, we can beat anyone. We beat Man City. The best we can hope for is a draw. How defensive is that? Awful.
I'm going to step in here. HG's been a bit naughty because Dave called HG cynical last night. He's trying to get his own back.
HG, I was in my school report, not that one. At the age of 15, one of the teachers said, "David is a languid cynic," and my father, God rest his soul, said, "When have you learnt to become a cynic?" And I said, "Sitting across the dinner table from you." And I was very smug with that response. So, HD, you and I are in the same cynical bucket. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the bucket.
I have nothing wrong with it. It's just funny. It's just funny because we can beat Liverpool. Liverpool have lost this season.
Yes.
Who beat them? I don't remember, but I know someone has beaten them, and it wasn't someone amazing.
The team that are having the best season ever. West Ham, don't forget. They are having the best season.
But then West Ham, the Alisson dropped a couple of clangers in that game. It was, I don't know. Yeah, maybe we get lucky and their goalkeeper plays badly, but West Ham are a decent side and they can move the ball forward. And Spurs against good teams haven't really shown that. So none of us really know what can happen, but it is still possible that we fluke one in off someone's backside and win 1-0. It's not likely, but it can happen.
Well, the feeling of warmth and optimism I have about this game is the fact that our coach is one of the top 3 coaches in the world today. Imagine if Nuno was in charge now, and we were going into this, it would be hide behind the couch time.
No, it's true.
Looking at the Liverpool team, though, that faced Newcastle, because of those injuries, as you said, HG, Konate came in defence. I'd never heard of him until yesterday. And Oxlade-Chamberlain made part of the 3 in midfield with Henderson and Thiago. So that's gettable. I think obviously the front 3, Salah, Jota and Mane are in incredible form. But I think we can get at them. I think that the players that they got missing aren't insignificant. Van Dijk is so important to how they play. We saw that last season with their terrible home record when he wasn't there after the injury. So I think we can get at them. Who of the front 3 are you most worried about there, HG? Is it? I think Jota, obviously Salah is probably the main one, but Jota's been playing superbly recently as well.
Yeah, I've never been a massive fan of Mane, but I'm sure he'll score now. I've said that. But yeah, Jota is good. Salah has proven. He is. Let's face it, he probably is the best player in the world right now. Yeah. He scores regularly. When he goes through 1-on-1, you don't expect him to miss. There was the goal he scored recently. I forget it was Everton, and he was being kind of off balance as he shot, and it still found the bottom corner. He's just at the peak of his powers. So yeah, you hope that someone kicks him early on, and or he falls down and gets concussed on the cold, wet North London floor. I don't know, but yeah, he has to be the main worry. Because when you look at that Liverpool side, yes, the front 3 are really good, but because they're so good, all they really need is a bit of support from the fullbacks. The midfield don't offer too much. They never really have. They get a few goals in midfield. Like Henderson gets a couple a year. Wijnaldum did last season. But you don't look at Thiago and think, he might get 1 in 10, 1 in 15. The threat is up front. So if we can somehow deny them shooting opportunities and maybe kind of press them maybe 30 yards from our goal, 35 yards from our goal, and not just camp on the edge of our box. I don't know. You look at what Spurs did under Mourinho, where we had the back 4 plus the 2 defensive midfielders, and we had that in effect a back 6. Liverpool didn't really get many chances in those games, and so there is. It allowed us to then, if you have that 6 and then 4, the other 4 players have the license to go forward and maybe try and create something. It seems a better balance than the kind of the 5 plus 2 midfielders that can't really create anything. I don't know. Maybe the Conte system is even more defensive when it comes to how they play. But you'd like to think that, if we stop them from shooting, then that's half the battle. And I'm surprised that many teams don't seem able to do that. The teams that do well against Liverpool tend to be the ones that can keep the ball, right? For actually good on the ball and don't mind running with it and are trying to take risks, as opposed to those who just sit on the back. If you sit on the edge of the 18-yard box, Liverpool will almost always find a way through. So it's not an easy call at all.
And Shelby did score a goal. He scored pretty early in the game as well. They sort of sat off and allowed him the space to shoot. And I think that Alisson was blindsided. I don't think he even tried to save it. So if Newcastle can score against them, we bloody well can as well. Speaking of which, let's go around quickly the room before we move on to a different subject. Let's get your predictions. John, you first. What do you think the score will be on Sunday?
2-1 Liverpool.
Okay. I'll leave it there. Davo?
Well, based on H's comments, it's going to be 2-0 Liverpool because Thiago and Mane are going to score. Well, let's go with a cheery pre-Christmas 2-1 to Tottenham.
Yeah, get in. That's it. Optimism. HG?
1-0.
Oh. I know you'd be happy with that, I suppose. Yeah, like I don't know. I'm kind of on the fences in that has this 2-week break allowed us to sort of have time on the training pitch and get fresh, or has Liverpool playing yesterday? Will that benefit them? They'll be match ready. They'll be up for it. But yeah, why not? 2-1 Spurs. Just go for it. Sonny's back in training. Sonny and Kane with the goals, and Jota for them. So we now have 68 people watching. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please do give us a like, and because it helps us a lot, and we'll get through as many comments and questions as we can. We'll move on today. It was announced the groups for the Nations League. We are grouped with, I think it's Hungary, Italy, and what was the other one?
Germany.
Germany. Of course, yeah, Germany. Sorry. I'll start with you, John. Do you care really about the Nations League? Because it's there to replace the friendlies, so it gives us, I guess, it's something to win. But is the Nations League just the national equivalent of the conference?
The bizarre thing about the Nations League is that we all thought, oh, this won't work. But actually, people started watching it and countries started taking it seriously. And what it's meant is rather than blooding players in friendlies, which they're not having anymore, they're now blooding players in World Cup and European qualifiers against San Marino and Andorra, and they're taking the Nations League more seriously because they're playing bigger teams. It's a bit of a weird spin. From my working point of view, it's great because I get students coming to watch England play these sort of teams, whereas they wouldn't come and see them play Andorra or San Marino very often. The only problem is the middle of summer for me, so I'll be shut by then. But yeah, it brings some good games, and I think it's good in many ways. It'll give England a better preparation for the World Cup, if anything, because they're playing top teams in a proper game rather than playing a friendly against Uruguay or Brazil they might play, where they don't really get the same competitive edge.
So it's the qualifiers that are the conference, and the Nations League is the Premier League or the Champions League.
Pretty much.
David, your thoughts? I guess, yeah, it'd be good to see England play the likes of Germany more regularly and Italy. We played them in the summer. Thoughts on it?
You mean you robbed me of my line? Because I was going to say it's like the Conference League of international football.
Sorry.
You robbed me. Look, I struggle with the World Cup qualifiers. I struggle with the Euros qualifiers. Once we get to the tournament, then you get your Panini sticker album out and get that obscure Polish centre back in the sticker album, and off you go. You're all excited to go. So the European Nations League, will look impressive. We'll be patchy in parts. We go 1-0 up. We should change things around at the 70th minute mark. He doesn't. We go out on penalties. That's what happens, isn't it? Now that is cynical.
Yeah. Well, hey, Sheen, what did you think of the group? Do you think? Because I think it's seeded, isn't it? So all the good teams play the other good teams, and I guess the teams that are medium play the other medium teams and have the chance to get into the big teams. I don't fully understand how it works, clearly.
That's basically it. So I think the best 16 teams. I mean, it's based on previous Nation Leagues experience. So like Hungary are in the big group, but because they got promoted from Group B. And I think before that they got promoted. They started in Group C and then won that, and then went to Group B and won that. So you get the chance for those lower ranked nations to play more games against bigger teams. But I think also for those lower ranked teams in Group C, they get more games that they can actually win, where it's more competitive. So for England, it feels a bit weird because we were in pot 3 of the best 16. So we knew we were going to have 2 pretty tough games. We may well have got the 2 toughest ones from pots 1 and 2, and then Hungary, just like in the Euros, Hungary were kind of like left with, oh great, we get 3 really good teams again, fantastic. But I'm excited because if the Germans decide to play the England game in Munich, then that's not too far away. Budapest is not too far away. I wouldn't mind a trip to Rome or Milan. So that nothing's that far away from me. I would have liked Austria to play England, obviously, but because Austria are also in that top 16, just about. Same with Wales, kind of scraping it in. But I don't know. I don't necessarily care whether we win the group and whether we get through to the finals. But I do like the fact, as other people have said, that we're playing, let's say, games that do matter. Like the day after my daughter was born, England played Germany in a friendly. And England won that game 3-2 in Berlin, and it was actually a pretty good game. I think Dyer and Kane scored for England. Like those games can be memorable. I mean, England went to Spain in the First Nations League and beat them there again. I think 3-2. So it can give you good memories, even if you don't go on and win it. I don't think anyone really cares who wins the Nations League. I couldn't tell you who won it last time. I really don't know.
France. Was it France?
Yeah. I don't know. I remember the games apparently were quite good, but I had no interest in watching them, so I don't remember it. But I just think that I'd rather this than play random friendlies on a wet Tuesday night in a half full Wembley when all of England is thinking, why is this game not in Villa Park or at Sunderland, or when they used to take the national team around the country? People liked that, and so yeah, it gives a bit more prestige to England games. So why not?
John, they've announced that they are in talks with allowing South American teams to be part of it, which at first I was like, well, how is that a thing? It's like adding Australia to the Eurovision Song Contest or adding Argentina to the Six Nations or whatever. Like, there's a theme today. But like I think you pointed out, like, as they're losing out on the friendlies against European teams because they don't have time in their schedule now. They're either doing a Nations League or the qualifiers. So what's your take? Would you mind seeing Brazil and Argentina rock up in the Nations League, and would it be a good thing?
I think if the games are played in Europe, which both those teams particularly play a lot of games in Europe traditionally, don't they? Because all their players are here. I wouldn't have a major problem with it. Again, I think it's only a good thing for the European teams to play these South American teams, because when it comes to World Cups, they need that different style quite a lot of the time. Even though, as I just said, a lot of these players play in Europe, you do get that different style, don't you, with the international teams in South America? Yeah, I haven't got a major problem with it. If it helps the Nations League grow and we get rid of these tin pot friendlies and maybe get rid of San Marino and Andorra out of these World Cup qualifiers and into pre-qualifiers.
The countries.
John, are you proposing that countries invade?
So Brazil, you're now stationed where Gibraltar used to be.
I think that would make a far more interesting tournament, to be honest. You go invade Andorra or San Marino. You've got 2 weeks to do it. And if you can find it. If you haven't raised your flag over their Parliament building, you've lost. I like that. That's a much better idea.
There you go, job done.
Hayes G, do you think does it affect the integrity of the Nations League? It doesn't necessarily have to be just a European thing. And as pointed out, the South American teams, the friendlies that they had against European teams were quite lucrative for them. So it did help countries like, maybe not so much Brazil and Argentina, but Argentina's not great economically, but countries like Chile, Paraguay, Colombia, where they used to get these friendlies, they don't anymore. And it would be good for their FA. It'd be good for the sort of, it may filter down to grassroots. So there's a way to spin it to make it attractive.
Yeah, there's 10 South American teams. like a Venezuela going to be in Group A? No. So it might, Venezuela versus Latvia may not be a real money spinner for the Venezuelans. So obviously, Brazil and Argentina will be in the big pot. I don't know about any. Uruguay possibly would be. They're going to have to kind of divide them up between it all. But yeah, if the players are in Europe, which most of them are, or a lot of them are, not most, but a lot of them are, then yeah, it gives them a bit more exposure for them to get better. It feels a bit harsh on the bigger African sides because some of them could easily join it too, and then suddenly you get a World Cup. Basically, you get a World Cup league, and then Arsene Wenger gets his dream of having World Cups every 6 months. They'll find a way to make football. When I say more exciting, I mean more profitable. They'll make more money from these games. Let's face it, that's why they're doing it. But they'll make more money because most football fans do find them more exciting. I would rather watch Italy play Belgium or Holland in some kind of competitive game than I would do if it's just a random, a friendly between, I don't know, Holland and Czech Republic. I don't know. So it's something that will almost certainly happen because there's money in it, and I don't hate the idea. So,
dare I say, do we have too much football?
Well, I mean, the players will say that. Sure, certainly. I'm sure the players, like Courtois, came out 6 months ago and said that somebody needs to think about what the players are doing, and I would agree. But yeah, I don't know, they're not going to turn the money down.
No, but I think for a certain generation of fan, i.e., me, who's old. You have you obviously got your tournament. You've got the domestic season, and that finishes, and then every 2 years you do have the excitement of the Euros and the World Cup. I used to love the start of the World Cup. The first weekend, and there's about 9 games on the weekend. All you had to do was sit on your couch, drink beer, and watch football. Those were the days. And now, now it's cool. I get St George flag up in the living room. We'll get up and watch the games at 5. If it's 4, 5, 6 in the morning, that's cool. But the Euro nations and then the South Americans can come in and this, that, and the other. I just think it's all a bit overdone. I mean, the Qatar World Cup is in November next year, correct? So the season is stopping when? In October to give some pre-World Cup preparation?
I think it's December
the season finishes on November the 13th because it's the day after my birthday. That's why I remember it.
And then
the World Cup starts the week after.
Okay, right. So they have a week, yeah.
Okay, and then once the World Cup finishes, we go back into the season.
Yep. On Boxing Day, yeah. So the World Cup finishes on the 19th of December, I think, and then we start Boxing Day.
Right. Okay.
It's basically in the season. It's a mid-season tournament, in effect. I mean, there's no break before it or afterwards. Because the Nations League, I think they have 4 of these Nations League games this summer. So the European football ends when the European Cup final is in end of May, and then a week later they'll start with the Nations League. It's 4 games over 10 days, maybe, because it'll be every 3 days you'll play. So let's say for the bigger players, you're looking at middle of June, you're going to finish, and the new season will start, first week of August this year, because it's got to start a bit earlier because of the World Cup. So what used to be a 2.5 month summer break where you'd get 6 weeks off and 4 weeks pre-season is now a 6 week summer break where you might get 3 weeks off, 4 weeks off, and then a 2 week pre-season. It does push things together. I mean, the World Cup where it is a joke, but it's only bad because we have to wait 4 extra months now. It should be next summer. We should be 6 months away. Yeah, we should have. I hope this is the one and only time that we do this. But yeah, it does look like the football season will end up being, the first week of August until the last week of May for almost everyone. And there'll be games galore. Because I mean, if Spurs are the unlucky side that have to do the whole Conference League qualification again. So some of those games, some of these teams will start middle of July. It is too much football. But most countries have done away with their second cup competition. The Germans used to have one, but they got rid of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a solution. Maybe one leg ties at various things will help.
Sorry to jump in. Can they change that mid-season? So we still currently have 2-leg ties for the semis. Is it? No, for the semis of the League Cup.
Yeah, League Cup semis. Too.
Can they just scrap it mid-season? Like say, look, because we've got all this congestion. Say we make it to the semis. We should beat West Ham and whoever we get in the semis. If they can chop that down to 1 leg from 2, but then would it have to be neutral ground? Or
well, last year it wasn't. Last year it was 1 leg, and Spurs got Brentford and played at home, and Sissoko scored. It was a 2-0 1 leg semi-final win. That they could do it. I don't think they'd do it with 3 weeks' notice or whatever it would be now. But yeah, like if an FA Cup semi-final can be on a neutral ground, why not a League Cup semi-final? It doesn't have to be at Wembley. Like again, people miss those days where you get a semi-final at Old Trafford or a semi-final at Villa Park.
It was always Villa Park.
It was always Villa Park, yeah, exactly. But why not? Why not? If it is a Wednesday night game between Man City and Spurs, why not have it in Birmingham? I mean, it's there are things that they could do to make it let's say better, but sadly, 2 games are always going to be more lucrative than 1. And I think that's the big issue. It's how they can make more money rather than what's best for players. It's the same with the whole. We used to get everything via Sky, and now you have to have Sky and Amazon and BT. It's all well and good to give you choice, but actually you end up paying more. It's more lucrative for them. That's why they did it. So I'd be happy if maybe things were changed a little bit, but I don't really know how, because I do like watching football all year long. I do.
Yeah, Guardiola was in his sort of typically passive aggressive way moaning about the Christmas schedule, saying because, and to be fair, like it is like 3 games in a week or whatever, but he said, look, the players aren't machines. Like, and so, but then that's why you have a squad. You do have to rotate. There will be muscle injuries, so prepare for them. So that's.
I mean, he's only spent 250 million on 4 fullbacks, so I've got a lot. I feel sorry for him. He needs, he's working out his kind of campaigning for Catalan human rights whilst being employed by the mob that employs him. It's tough for him, and we should have sympathy for Pep.
I see. I'd be like that as well. But Beckham's just signed a 150 million deal to be the face of the Qatar World Cup. So it's just because money talks. Because I love Beck, so now he does that. Like, do you need 150 mil really? Come on, show some more.
Why? Hang on. Why do you love Bex? I'm interested to hear this.
Because just growing up, like he was the sort of the poster boy for England, I guess, and. I saw him score. It's the only time I've been at a Tottenham game and have applauded. I'm going to get killed for this. Had applauded an opposition goal. He was herring in on Ian Walker. This would have been the
97, January 97.
Yeah, and he hit the ball, and I sit behind the goal. And I just saw the movement of the ball and Walker just going like this. And I was like, that is incredible. So I said that, and then I was like, shit, I should sit down. But yeah, no, I just. How can you not love Beckham? He's got the soft voice and everything, and he was great for England. Like I don't know.
I mean Beckham lobbed Walker twice that week because we had that game up at Old Trafford, which is the FA Cup 3rd round, where we had Neil Fenn and Rory Allen up front, and I went to that game. And you go to that game, it's snowing. We're going to lose. There was 5,000 behind the goal. It was a great atmosphere. We cheered them from start to finish. But they spanked us 2-0, and then the following weekend, I think it was either John Scales and/or Ramon Vega's debut for Jerry Francis's Tottenham, and Beckham did the same thing against Walker. And those were the 90s, my friends. Great days.
Those were the 90s. And if you did love the 90s for Spurs, I was on I recorded the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast with Tim Vickery and Dotun Adebayo this week, reviewing the 1999 Worthington Cup final. They choose iconic matches from history, and that was the one I went for. And I did acknowledge that I was stretching the term iconic match to the very limit, but that was the 90s. That was all we had.
Well, hang on. We had the 91 FA Cup final. That was more iconic.
It was before my time. He wanted to review that one, but I was like, mate, I was 8 and wasn't I wasn't
I
aware
can-
of it at all. I'd be
I'm
shit.
happy to talk about the night one cup final. Happy days. Happy
Get
days.
in touch with Tim and Don.
Yeah, sure.
Kerry raises a good point here. If too much football is adding to the players' heart problems, which is poignant because today Christian Eriksen had his contract terminated by Inter Milan because he's fitted with, is it a pacemaker or a defibrillator? I can't remember which.
It's not a defibrillator because that's the thing that makes you go boom, boom.
I know, that's what I
It's
said,
not
but I Googled it because that's what they said on We Are Tottenham TV, and I was like, that's not right, defibrillator. And I Googled it, and it wasn't the true thing. But anyway,
okay.
Yeah, there might be something else, but yeah, because defibrillator is what Justin Edinburgh or Charlie Edinburgh was promoting for the
maybe
Charlie.
I'm wrong, but yeah,
No, I think
maybe they have a smaller version that corrects it. I think that must be what it is. It corrects it if it notices there's a problem.
Yeah, it sends a shock or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a real lack of medical intellect and input on the cheese room amongst all the contributors and hosts. We need to get a doctor on. Okay?
we do need a doctor.
We need a doctor. We need a doctor. What's that posh word that people who deal with global pandemics begins with E or something? I can't remember. Endopologist or whatever.
You mean an
Epidemiologist.
We need one of them as well. Get them all on.
the only doctor involved with Tottenham is Dr. Tottenham.
Yeah,
we can ease everyone's worries, but on an individual case-by-case basis, we can't deal with the whole world.
No, but so I think it's a good point about it. It's a good point that Kerry's raised because I've been thinking about this over the last couple of months. Is that we've noticed anecdotally more players have issues with heart issues in the last couple of months than I recall. Right now, obviously, there's the awful thing that happened with Mwamba, who actually there was a doctor in the house who saved his life. I think Foe unfortunately passed away. I think Song as well. So, but
Ehiog had retired by then.
Oh yeah, but Ehiog at the training ground the week of the Chelsea semi. God rest his soul. So it's but obviously with Aguero and Eriksen, I've noticed, and there's a couple of other players. We've noticed it more in the last few months. Now, whether, and I am not a conspiracy theorist, to be clear, whether there's something to do with the vaccine or not having the vaccine and having had COVID and doing high intense exercise has got anything to do with it. And that is my GCSE F biology opinion. Over to the experts.
So yeah, you are the doctor because you got an F.
No.
I think I'd better than an F, but I don't really remember what I got. But yeah, it's like the point that Keith Browning makes. I'll just put it up again. We had it up earlier. That I mean, I don't know much about US college sports, but I could see that. I mean, maybe there is a link. Maybe they're getting tested so much for various things now. You know, with all the medicals are that much more in depth. But yeah, like. I don't know. None of us really understand what's going to happen with COVID and the effects of COVID long term. I guess we can just hope that what we'll see are our retirements of players in their mid-30s or early 30s, as opposed to something far worse, which we've seen before anyway. It's you've just got to hope that the technology is there, that whatever issues do come up, we can deal with it. But maybe they'll end up enforcing a rule that players can only play a certain amount of games a season, and then it will be up to managers to manage that level as well. So like if there's, let's say 50 games is probably the maximum that most teams can play, then you say that players can only play 40, and you have to figure out whether that's Champions League or because one game a week in many cases. Like I don't know, but if there's more evidence of things going wrong, then I think they'll have to look at various things because they're not going to give up games. So you have to find a way to keep the talent happy, and like you won't end up paying them less because they don't get paid per game anyway. So for the players, there's little to lose, but you'd hope that the product. I hate saying these words. The product would be better if the players aren't as knackered. And if there is a maximum of 40 club games a season, then yeah, for those in the league, then okay, you've got a couple of choices you need to make if you only got league and cup games. But for those in Europe that have the bigger squads usually, that can attract more players because they can offer them those things. I mean, you just have to look at the career of Gareth Barry or James Milner. I mean, for years they've played probably 30, 35 games a season, and they're not all league games, but they've been used and they've been in the squad and valued members of those Man City teams and Liverpool teams in the past, where that may well become more of a role that could be worth something to teams. Because right now you seem to have squads of 20 players who all want to play every game. And perhaps there is something to be said for trying to arrange it so that they can't, for their own benefit. But yeah, I don't know. We're looking probably 5 years ahead before they start thinking of those things. But it's definitely possible.
On Eriksen, there's been talk of him perhaps coming back. Pros and cons. I mean, obviously it would be free. He's on a terminated contract. Do you think having him back in the Premier League with his condition is a concern, or would you think he's best suited for the Dutch league? Dave, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, there's always this thing on here and in the comments on the Slack chat, if you're a Patreon member, about get Eriksen back, get Bale back, get Poch back. So let's just put all three in the same bucket. No. Move on. With Eriksen, the most important thing, obviously, is he survived, and that's the most important thing. It may well be the case that he's going to call it a day now, really. I know that people talk about Danny Blind, but I don't think he had a heart attack. I know he's got a device fitted, and then they've got insurance issues and things like that. So I don't want to, for footballing reasons, I don't want to see Eriksen back at Tottenham. He's done his time with us. And I think there's probably a large likelihood that he may not play again, unfortunately. And what he wants to do next, whether he wants to remain within the industry or not, obviously, that's something that he needs to think about.
I think he's probably going to go to Ajax, if anywhere. I think Spurs would struggle to get him insured, probably. Obviously, we don't know the full medical situation, but I think we'd struggle. And I think going back to HG's point about the number of games, I think it depends where you play. Because someone could play 100 games in the Dutch league, couldn't they, realistically? If you play in central midfield.
I thought you meant on the pitch. Like a goalie can play loads.
Yeah, a keeper could play more, although, of course, was moaning. I'm just going to throw my BTEC of sports science merit overall in here from the 90s. I think, honestly, I thought you'd like that, Dave. I think that we're hearing the players are saying they get trained harder now than they actually work in the game. These coaches are working them so hard. When they don't play, they're working even harder. Poch used to do it, didn't he? And now Conte's doing double, triple sessions with them. Reggie was saying it was the worst week of his life that first week. So maybe that's an element of it. They are literally pristine machines, and they are worked, and they don't get a decent break, as HG's just said, because at the end of the season, if they're not playing for their country, they're going on a tour to America or Malaysia or somewhere like that, or even Australia. And they just
even Australia.
It's just non-stop for them, isn't it? They get such a small break. But yeah, can't remember what I'm saying now. HG.
Yeah, I've always got something to say. No, I'm just looking at the comments.
Yes, just bring some up, HG.
I'm looking at the comments because they're useful. People, everyone has an opinion on this, and none of us, I don't think anyone watching or certainly on the show, understand the science behind it. But yeah, I do feel as if something will have to change at some point. You can't continue. Like Harry Kane, as much as he might want to, can't continue to play 50, 55 games a year. Maybe more than that. When you take, Spurs doing all right, and then England games as well, it's an awful lot of football. It's the COVID situation obviously makes things a lot more prevalent right now. But I want to think that it's good. Oh, the Don Vele thing, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's funny because the Steve the accountant, I don't know which game it was. Might have been Norwich. He was arguing with me, and Steve's got a seat right behind the bench.
Conte Cam.
And he's telling me, yeah, Conte Cam, and he's telling me, Dombele's not on the bench. I'm like, yes, he is. And then Steve was like, oh, it must be this guy who he said he hasn't moved for an hour and a half. Like everyone else is kind of turning around and talking, but this guy was just kind of slumped with, the jacket up here and the hood down here. So that must be him, and I think it was. But Dombele, I mean, yeah, we all know what he's capable of when he wants to. It's just getting him to want to do it.
Yeah, I think we can take a lot from the fact that Conte's not been playing him. I don't think he'll play against Liverpool. You wouldn't trust him in such a big game. I think he's gone in Jan. He really is. And like I said, it's a shame because he does have the ability, but it just hasn't worked out for him. The application hasn't been there. Perhaps the change in culture, the change in the language. Maybe a return to France is best for him. We're going to take a financial hit, but
weirdly enough, with Dombele, like, if the rest of the team were really good, he'd be quite happy to run around because he wouldn't need to do it as much. Like, because we can't keep the ball, he has to run around more. So, like, being the big fish in Spurs is not a small pond, but when you're the record signing and people are expecting you to take charge of games, that he doesn't necessarily need or want. He's quite happy to be part of a well-oiled machine, and we haven't been that. And that's not his fault, really, but we haven't been that anyway. So
but he thought he was. Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
No, you go. Sorry. But at the time, he thought he was signing up for he was signing up to the Champions League's runners-up. So he thought he was signing. He's signing up for the second best team in Europe, and we were all, without fail, excited that we got him in. We were excited about his performances against City in the Champions League. He was the hot prospect. We can't do the "I told you so" dance on him, right?
No, I mean,
we can't because he was. We all thought, here we go. But when Potts says pre-season, you need to give him a year to settle in, I was thinking we're not paying 55 million for someone else. We've got to give a year to settle in, not another Sissoko who took 3 years to settle in. So he's a massive disappointment. He's got a shit attitude. He's got to go.
What like HG said, though, it reminded me of the Paulinho situation when he was at Spurs. He just didn't cut the mustard, but then you plonk him in the middle of Barcelona, and he's a worldie suddenly. So because he joined that system, and he was scoring so many goals for Barcelona because they were a well-oiled machine, and perhaps that's what Ndombele needs. But let's move on to other transfer talk at the moment. You sent them over, didn't you? So this is a funny one. So Ukraine left back Vitaly Mikulchenko is currently undergoing a medical at Everton, and that looks like it could be Lucas Digne will be leaving. John, I'll go to you first. Do you think we should go in for him? Do we need as a left back? Do you think he'd be a good option for us at left back?
I think he's a good player. He's still got 3 years left in his contract. I gather from HG's intel, he's had a little fallout with the waiter, Mr. Benitez. Yeah. I think they've probably asked too much money. We've got 2 options at left wing back at the moment. Hopefully, Cess will come good. We know Reggie's been improved, big time this year. Would I like him at a nice cheap price? Yes, definitely. But at the price Everton will want, probably not, because I'd rather spend the money on other positions currently.
Fair dues. Davo, he's got Premier League experience. He's got pedigree. I quite like him. I think every time I've seen him, I don't remember him putting a foot wrong. He does get forward. Would you go for him?
I think he's a good player, but I think they pretty much play in the flat back four, which we don't play, and it's not a priority position. Our priority positions are striker, midfield, probably another centre half, but I would live with a different midfield player. The striker is the most pressing need.
Yeah, it certainly is. And the other rumours that are bounding about, one I saw today was Davinson Sanchez being lined up to replace Kostas Morolas, I think is his name, at Napoli, who is off to Olympiacos. If we get 30 million for him, HG, keep or sell?
Sanchez, I don't think any of us really think he's great. So, yeah, we if we get good money for him, then he's going to go. Because he's, 25 or turns 26 in the summer. Yeah, we'll get good money for him. I'm sure of that. He's got a good reputation around Europe. If only for the fact he plays for Colombia and plays quite well. Spurs it's been a mess. The last 2 years at Spurs has been an absolute mess. He's much better if you get him to defend his 18-yard box where he doesn't have to think too much. And if you want to play front foot football, then he panics. If you put him in the Liverpool team right now, I don't think he'd look that good either. Because I think he'd have to, even if he was just sweeping up like Van Dijk does. I think that he would still struggle because that pressure is there. He doesn't want to use the pace that he has. He wants to just stand still and fend a certain area. That he's all right at. But yeah, if someone wants to offer good money, then I think Sanchez will go. And I think he needs probably a change. We certainly want to have maybe someone a bit better. So yeah, let's hope.
I just want to say hello to Lindy in the chat room, who is, of course, my fashion consultant whenever I go to the stadium as to whether I should have the collar up on my coat or down. So nice to see you again. Can I talk about Davinson Sanchez? I would almost be when he goes. I am quite tempted to do a quiz on the career of Davinson Sanchez. I think between.
Can we call it Sanchez mind?
Yes, we can. Because when us four together, without our medical backgrounds, but our collective years of supporting Tottenham, we have seen a museum of shit Tottenham centre halves throughout the years. We could do a 5-hour show on the whole subject. And Davinson is firmly in there. He's up with the Vegas. He's up with the Kevin Scott, wasn't it?
Oh, terrible.
Chris Perry, all of them. He is rubbish. So he can go. When I listen to the pod, and I love listening to the pod, and everyone should listen to the pod when it's out next. A very good host we have, and also Franco as well. Great contributors. But there are people on there who do say sometimes there's a good player in Sanchez. No, there's not. He's crap. He had a good game against City, start of the season. They give you that, and that's it. Got to go. And don't forget, 42 million quid. Thank you.
Fair point.
Right.
Speaking numbers, there's 120 people watching, and how many likes? I can't see how many likes we've got, but like it. There's not going to be 120 likes, so give this video a like. Sorry, HG, you're going to say something.
John Lacey.
Okay. Okay, let's go on to Kerry's comment here. Dybala rumours starting again. Am I right? Is Dybala in the contract expiry list for next year? I think he is, isn't he? Yes. So he'd be a great one, and we wouldn't need to worry about his bloody image rights this time. John, would you be happy with that? Or do you think, like, if you do get Vlahovic and Dybala, Harry can go, surely, with those two coming in?
Dybala has played up front. He's not the biggest, is he? But he has played up front for a few games for Juve in the last couple of years. He's a bit older. I don't know. I mean, yes, he's a good player. He hasn't had the best of seasons, I don't think, has he, this season? Probably missing his mate Ronaldo. But yeah, I wouldn't say no. It just depends on the overall jigsaw and who else we get in. But do I think he's going to come in? I don't know. I would have thought he might go to City, wouldn't he? Maybe. He's a Pep sort of player.
No, but with Conte, Conte managed him when he was manager at Juventus. So there's a link there. But then if you like that, then he's linked to half the players in Italy that are any good because he's managed the two best teams in Inter and Juventus. What other ones? Kessié has come up recently as well. Apparently, Spurs and PSG have made offers for his package because obviously, again, he's one of the Sorry, I'm sure it's a very good package. It's a 10 million euro package, so which in sterling is about 160,000 pounds a week. We can manage that surely. HG, what's your thoughts on? I've not seen much of Kessie. I saw AC Milan play fairly recently, but not the full game. It was in Fiorentina, I think it was. Yeah, because watching Vlahovic at the same time. Is he any good? And is he worth that size package?
Kessié's package. We could go on all night. I have, weirdly enough, for a defensive midfielder who scored a number of goals last season, was actually got into double figures, I think, for Milan last season when they made the Champions League. He seems to be one of those players that's really good at some things, but when he makes clangers, they're horrific. I've seen him make a number of mistakes for Milan, and they've tended to have led to goals recently. So, yes, I think he's an improvement on Winks. So I'd like to see that. I think he is more defensively sound. He's certainly more athletic. But he struggles under pressure, and that might be a problem. So yeah, like if it's on a free and it's a reasonable salary, then great. But yeah, I don't know. Like I want to think there's like it's very much a Levy deal, right? Because wages. If it's only wages and a nice signing on fee, then great. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'd be happy to see it happen, but there are others that I think could come in and do just as good a job. But he is an improvement on what we've got, sure.
Also, I think it was this week that it was announced quite firmly, sort of rumor-wise, but they can come from the club that Dele is going to be allowed to leave. I know we've gone on this for 3 years now, talking about Dele, but the rumor did look solid. It was quite worded. He will be allowed to leave, which suggests that he will be gone. Davo, where would he go? And I'm assuming it would be a loan.
Well, obviously there's Newcastle with their oil well of money that they need to spill and spend everywhere. So there's always there. Everyone's going to go to Newcastle. He could go to Everton. I think it's more than likely he'll go on a loan somewhere in January, and then we'll see what happens to him in the summer. But unfortunately, his race is run at Tottenham, and it's time to move on. And we have spent an inordinate amount of time talking about him and looking for glimpses of him getting back to what he was 3 years ago. And the sad thing is that statistic, whereas at that certain point of his career, he had more goals than Scholes, Gerrard, or whatever. That those days have well and truly gone. So it's sad, but loan in January, and then the £80 million move in the summer, which we'll use to buy Dybala, Vlahovic, and Sanchez's replacement.
Looking through the comments, any other rumours in the comments that has caught anyone's eyes?
While you look, like I think the big difference when it comes to Dele, the big difference between this January and last is that this January, Daniel Levy can look at it and be like, you have been given chances. You played a few games under Mason. You played a few games under Nuno. Last January, he could look at Dele and be like, you haven't played for a year, right? Like, clearly Mourinho had a massive issue with Dele at that point. So I think that Daniel Levy may well be looking at things and saying, well, maybe I was hasty before, but he hadn't had the chance, and now he's been given the chance, and it's not really working. So because this is Daniel Levy's football knowledge here. I don't think it's too deep, but I could see that as being that kind of the way he thinks, right? Like if you like the player that we all remember, the player that we love, the player that got all those goals, he hadn't really been given the chance to do that under Mourinho. Certainly for a very long time. It'd been 6 to 8 months by the time last January came around. It continued for the rest of the season, really. And I just think that even though I might have excuses as to why he hasn't thrived in the last couple of years, that Levy could say, look, if Conte doesn't want him, okay, right, now's the time. And again, I think last January under Mourinho, it was probably the right thing to say, well, maybe something can come of it. But when Mourinho went and then nothing really improved after that, he couldn't really become the number 10 in a Mason side, and he never got the chance to be that high up the pitch under Nuno. But you can look at the last year and say to Dele, okay, look, you've had your chances, you've had moments, and you haven't shown what we wanted you to see, or we wanted you to show. So I don't know, but
but don't you remember?
What else have you found?
Don't you remember in All or Nothing, Daniel Levy gave his career summation of Dele Alli when he said he was like that for years and now it's gone like that. Don't you remember that bit when Daniel gave his summary? Well, I do. It stood out for me. It always made me laugh when Daniel talked about footballing matters during that documentary. It just made me chuckle. I'm sorry about that.
I feel like Daniel Levy's knowledge of football is the same as my knowledge of opera. Like my wife loves opera, and she talks to me about it, and I'm around it often. But deep down, I know jack about opera.
Well, hang on a second. Is the more relevant question, does Daniel Levy know more about opera or football? That's the more relevant
maybe
question.
that is it.
Right?
Probably neither. Daniel Levy knows about DuckTales and
he knows about Mr. Byright because that was a family business. And
the history of Croesus. I don't know. But
I definitely thought you were going to say Mr. Tumble then for a minute.
It's such an ironic name of his company as well, given our track record with record signings. It clearly isn't Mr. Byron.
It's Mr. Byron.
Yeah,
definitely. I think going back to last January, the difference now is, do you think in Levy's mind, Mourinho was maybe already 1 foot out the door as far as he was concerned? Whereas now he's got Conte, who's just come in. He's given Paratici the power of the football side of it, and he is supposedly stepping back a bit. Those two very strong characters, I think, are basically saying, on top of what you said, HG, his time's done. We can't fit him into this system. Let's move him on.
And the thing is, last January, it was only December when we lost to Liverpool, right?
Yeah.
So we were still top 2, top 3 when January came around.
Yeah.
And obviously Delhi hadn't been playing, but we were doing well. And I just think that, hi, Mum. That's a lovely comment.
Hello.
It's weird. But I think that with Conte and Paratici now being in charge, if they don't want him and Levy's like, you know what, bring the money again, you can spend it. Right, whatever you bring in, you can spend. That maybe his days are over, but I do think that the players that I've seen in the comments of all those Italian-based ones, the one I actually want is Kulusevski. And Vlahovic would be lovely, right? But Kulusevski seems very gettable, and I think he's 22, and he's that kind of player that can almost like Havertz. Right, where he can do a bit of everything. He could lead the line and do a decent job. He could play just behind. He gets his fair share of goals. I think Kulusevski to Spurs would be a really good move. That's the one. Even though you look at his stats for Juventus, they've not been great. But I think that if he could be the third alongside Kane and Son, and it could work. I think he'd be a much better fit for that position than Lucas is, or maybe even Bergwijn could be.
Okay.
He's also joined a long list of players whose name I can't properly pronounce. Kulusevski, is that right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Cool. There we go. So there were comments before. There was one earlier. There's loads of comments coming in. Thank you so much for trying to get through all of them. Which position do we think that Conte is prioritising? I'll start with you, John. With January coming up.
Yeah, we all know there's 3, aren't there? There's striker, creative midfielder, and centre-back. And I imagine he's asking Paratici to fill all 3 positions, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. So are we, this is the other thing as well. Are we looking to replace Kane or get someone to play alongside? It's still up in the air. Not
this season. Whether they plan for next season is another thing. But I think we all know we need another striker in. There's no doubt. Kane, as HG said earlier, Kane should not be playing every single game. At some point, we hope he might start scoring a few goals. But he needs someone who can play as a partner, but also play up there with Son and Lucas or whoever comes in. It needs to be very fluid. Liverpool have done it. They brought in Jota to break up that front 3, to mix it up so that the other guys get a rest. And that's what you've got to do.
Well, HG, do you think we should go for a decent, obviously go for decent, but an expensive marquee signing striker to make a statement, or do we just keep plugging in the gaps with the Vincent Janssens and Llorentes and this is the time? Surely now we need a proper striker. But then on the flip side of that, are they going to want to come knowing they're playing second fiddle to Kane? But in either case, we need a striker.
Look, but players will go if they think the money is good enough, first and foremost, right? It's weird. You look at Chelsea's options, Lukaku could come in the summer because he knew he'd be the main man, because they didn't really have anyone else that was firing. Maybe Spurs are in that situation. Liverpool didn't have any problem attracting Diego Jota, despite everyone thought that's a lot of money for him, but they clearly saw something, and he was quite happy to spend 6 months out of the spotlight. Maybe there's something to be said for that. If we do go and spend a lot of money on Vlahovic in January, and it's not likely, but it is possible that we do push the boat out then maybe having 6 months alongside / behind Kane would be good for Vlahovic. Because like if he comes in the summer and Kane goes in the summer, then suddenly it's all on Vlahovic, and I don't want that either. So you've got to think about some kind of succession plan as to how it's going to work and what players would work. Because weirdly enough, I mean, I know Son signed a new contract, but he does turn 30 this summer. That's not super old, but you're going to be looking at it. I want to have 3 good strikers, and if Kane leaves, that means we need 2 more. It's not about finding just 2 and having keeping Kane around. We've got to look at. I do think that there are players out there in that Vincent Janssen bracket or in that Carlos Vinicius bracket that would help Spurs out, but they can't be expected to be Harry Kane. That's the problem. I mean, Vincent Janssen obviously wasn't a massive success at Spurs, but if you look at the results we got when he played, the results stayed good. So in some respects, he was able to keep Spurs winning despite not giving Kane statistics. That might be all we really need, as long as the team can function with another person. I don't care if they cost 15 million or 50, but that to me is the key. With the system needs to, or the players need to suit the system, because I don't think like Lautaro Martinez before Conte took over was a bit of a flop in Italy. He didn't look like being the person who was being linked with 60-70 million pound moves, but him and Lukaku worked. I wonder how well Lautaro's doing now that Lukaku's not there. I don't know. I genuinely wonder if he looks as good this season. But it's the system, I think, almost needs to be paramount here. We need to be buying for what Conte wants to do. And if that's one main striker, okay, then Vlahovic could come in. But Vlahovic and Kane together, I'm not sure that's ever going to be a plan A. It would only ever really be a plan B.
Yeah, but
Go on, Dave.
The sensible thing to do would be to buy Vlahovic now in the January transfer window, and the money we pay for him is the money that is we budget for what we're going to get Kane, because Kane's valuation has dropped off a cliff. So what we do is we get Vlahovic in now. We've got, is it now 3 games we've got to make up in the Premier League? So we are going to get compressed, regardless of whether the Snore Conference League we're in it or not. We're going to be compressed. The priority is top 4. We didn't buy a striker in the summer window. It's a major weakness. So my view is you get Vlahovic in now, give him 6 months until Kane goes, and then you get your Janssen, Llorente, whatever in the summer for less money, and that's your 2 strikers along with Son, and then job done. That's the sensible approach.
One player whose contract is expiring, I think it is in the summer, is Hugo. He's not signed a new one yet, so it kind of begs the question, does he want to? Do we want to? John, start with you. Would you like Hugo to get a new contract? Do you think he wants it, and do you think the club wants it?
I think Conte has come out and, well, there's been suggestions Conte wants him to sign a new contract and wants to keep him. I think he's probably open to it. We've discussed in the past how he'd like to go and retire in Nice and play the last few years there because it's his hometown. He's not going to PSG, is he? He's not going to displace Donnarumma. So it's really down to his family. What do they want? Is it like Alderweireld, where he's gone to the Middle East to go and basically semi-retire and spend time with his kids, which you completely understand? Or, does he want to keep competing? Does he like Conte? He could easily say, "Can give me another year or give me another 2 years," and then go back to France, I guess. HG, going back to your Martinez comment, he scored 11 in 16 in Serie A, but 0 in 6 in the Champions League, interestingly.
Yeah, I mean, we got a comment here from the Roman numerals. I think that's what I'm going to call you from now on.
Who did Latin then?
11 in 16 is obviously good. I mean, there's no knocking it. I don't know where Inter are in the league, but I don't think they're first. I know Napoli were up there for a long time, so he's obviously scoring. But yeah, and they being the Firmino successor, okay. I mean,
they are first.
They are first, are they? Okay, there you go.
They are 4 points ahead of Milan, having played an extra game.
Okay. All right. Serie A is a much better league than I think people give it credit for. I should watch it more often. I tend to watch the Venezia games because the stadium's so damn cool that I love watching football at Venezia. But yeah, I mean, all the strikers that were listed in some of the comments, like Marcus Thuram, Belotti, Icardi, like they could all come in and be, maybe the second or the third. But I don't know about the main guy. And every club needs to really have at least one main striker. United haven't really had it for a long time, which is why they struggled. Because Martial was never really it. Rashford's not really it. But like Aguero was it, and Salah has been it. Like you need to have one that's going to guarantee you 20, 25 goals a season. We don't know if Vlahovic can be that, but there were various plans that came in the comments that people have been talking about Julian Alvarez as an option because he's a bit cheaper, might come in and be that guy. I can't find the one comment I want to show. Dang it! This one here.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. If that were to happen, considering I love Jovic, great. Vlahovic and Jovic. I don't know if Jovic is going to leave Real Madrid.
He played recently. That was the thing I noticed. He's been there ages, and I've never seen him play, but he played recently.
Yeah, so the Serbian connection, Spurs' success in recent years has been based on, kind of like countries. We went from Croatia, then we went to Belgium, and now we're trying Argentina, and it hasn't really worked yet. But like, there's got to be something to be said for people that play together regularly. It helps them, it helps their country. If Vlahovic is only coming to Spurs because of Conte, right? I mean, we have to be clear on that. He wouldn't be considering it otherwise, and especially in January. Like if I'm Vlahovic, I'm waiting till the summer. It wouldn't even be entering my mind to leave in January. But if that was to happen in the summer, and Jovic wants regular football, Vlahovic wants to play for Conte, they might sign shorter deals and be like, hey, I'll sign a 3-year deal with you. That gives me 2 years. And if even after one, if I don't like it, it's still good. But I think players are going to shorten their contracts to make things a little bit easier for them to get out. And Spurs are that type of club where if it's not going well, you want to have some kind of way out of it. So I don't know, but even though I'm not too high on selling Kane at any point. I would still rather keep him around, even if he wasn't the main man. I just think that, the succession plan in various parts of the pitch has to, we have to have Conte's system in mind.
Let's go through some of the comments here. Jovic barely plays because Benzema's uprising post CR7 killed his confidence. He was supposed to be the main man at Madrid. So perhaps that's it. So maybe he is, but I think they've got Vinicius Junior. No, Vinicius Junior is there. Vinicius in it, who's banging them in. So he's got competition.
Benzema turns 34 the day after tomorrow because he's exactly the same birthday as my brother, which is why I remember it. So Benzema's not got many years left. And Jovic is only 23, 24 now. So he could become that guy. But yeah, like if I'm Jovic, how long do I wait before Real Madrid move on from Benzema? Because right now they're not going to. He's scoring all the time for them. It's a tough call because, again, he's on astronomical wages there. Right? So
400 grand,
if Bale was getting like 600 grand a week, I think Jovic is 350, maybe even 400.
I'm sure it's on 400.
Yeah. And so it's if there is going to be a move to be made, Real are going to have to subsidise his wages as well. It might be pie in the sky.
When's Benzema's appeal coming up? Because he was found guilty and he's appealed it.
I think that's finished. He's got his sentence, but he's not doing any time or something. I think that was resolved.
He's not doing any porridge.
Yeah. As rich people.
Can I just a fact check you on your age thing, HG? It's Benzema's 34th birthday in 2 days, and Jovic will be 24 in 6 days.
Okay. Did I say Sunday?
I didn't know you said a date. I was just saying date. How old they were. That was all.
Yeah. No, my brother turns 34 on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But Jovic is his birthday next week. So yeah.
Happy birthday to HG's brother.
Yeah, who knows more about opera than he does about football, most likely.
But yes, Jovic has been playing the last couple of games. He came on at half-time for Benzema in the Madrid derby the other day. Don't know if Benzema was injured, and he played sort of 75 minutes in the previous 2 games as well and scored a goal.
Well, I'm going to look to wrap up fairly soon because my missus is going to kill me. So let's one final question here from Gov. We love Gov. It's a question we all love harking back to. We're a very nostalgic fan base, as Davo pointed out with us, always pining after Poch and stuff. But is there anyone out there that compares to Moussa Dembele? Anyone that comes close? And Davo, you can start that one.
No, I'm not sure there is. But is there an argument at all, regardless of his contract, of getting in James Ward-Prowse? Good set kick
For the free
taker.
kicks.
Number 8 can pass the ball. Something, as I keep banging on about, we need something different in that midfield. Would he provide that? Could we give the Saints Winks and Sanchez in exchange?
He's better than
he a
Winks.
starter? Yeah, but is he a starter? Because Winks isn't a starter. So do we sign James Ward-Prowse to sit on the bench like Winks does?
No, because I'd want the look. Skip's been the player of the season so far. It's
There's a bit
not
of
had
an
much.
echo somewhere.
Sorry,
Hold on.
might be me.
Sorry.
Skip's been the player of the season so far. Not much competition in that regard, but he has been. And I think we all thought at the start of the season it would be Skip or Højbjerg rotating, and Skip would be the cover for Højbjerg. So I would like to see a Ward-Prowse coming in, and the 3 of them rotating through. So when you got your Burnleys at home and those that we've got to break, it's harder to break down. We play that as our 2 in midfield. So that's what I'd like to see.
I think it would be interesting to decide that we're going to get better by taking Southampton's midfield of Højbjerg and Ward-Prowse. Like that like, even though I do think they're good players, I mean, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, Southampton's issues aren't due to the fact that was their midfield.
Yeah.
But there's that question of, like, would that be enough to get us where we want to go? And if those 2 and Skip, would it be enough? But yeah, like, he's clearly a very good player, and I think all of us would take him over Winks. But yeah, I think Brendan's point about how often he would play, I don't think he's going to play every game for any of the big 6. I don't think he'd play every game for Arsenal either. So it's it's a question for Ward-Prowse, because I don't really know what his next step would be. He may well be like a Letizia and just never ever leave and be that Southampton legend, captain of the East right now, and go on and just stay there his whole career. I don't know, but
fun fact: Letizia signed for Spurs in the summer of '91, and then Mrs. Letizia said, "I'm not moving to North London." So the deal was done.
1990.
I'm going 91, JW, but we'll see.
Well, he always says 90 and 93 were the 2 times that Spurs had bids accepted by Southampton for him.
And here's one final fun fact about Matt Letizia. He did go out with Marilyn from Home and Away. So there you go.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. I'll give you one. I met him at a Guernsey FC game.
There's three Matt. We've had 4 Matt Letizia comments in 2 minutes, Brendan. Come on.
And I was once on a flight to Guernsey with him as well. So there you go.
Wow.
On 5.
All right, going back to Gov's question.
Sorry,
anyone
Gov.
that compares to Moussa Dembele, that's a tough one. I mean, like, I watch a lot of football. Like if you're thinking, right, because let's think what Dembele was. For a long time at Willem II and AZ before he went to Fulham, he was more of an attacking midfielder. And then he moved back under Yao at Fulham and then stayed there at Spurs. You'd be looking for someone who's 6 foot plus, who's good on the ball, who can beat a player. So you might be looking for an attacking midfielder that can do those things, who then ends up moving back because he wants to get on the ball more. Like, weirdly enough, over the years, it's going to sound stupid now, but I thought Yarmolenko could have done that, because Yarmolenko is just one of those players who, when he's on the ball, he wants the ball. He wants to beat a man and try and get a shot away. And obviously, you're not going to do that when you're in central midfield. But I think Yarmolenko had the ability to do that if he wanted to. But yeah, if you're looking at 6 foot attacking midfielders, a stick in Holland, there's another Dutch guy coming through called Calvin Stengs. He hasn't got the bulk yet that Dembele had, but he could obviously grow into something. I think he's at Monaco or Nice. He went to French football last summer from Dutch football. but like, he's that he could possibly become that. But like if there's anyone who is like that already, then they're probably almost already too good for Spurs. It's that the ability to beat a man that Dembele had, I think, can only come really from an attacking player who then moves back. I don't know too many central midfielders that are that comfortable at doing it that have been central midfielders their whole careers.
What about
Because
Sarr?
So I was going to bring up Sarr because someone commented about it recently, and that kind of ties into with the James Ward-Prowse argument, because in his YouTube highlights, which is all I've seen of Pape Matar Sarr, he scored a few decent free kicks. The technique was beautiful. I saw, well, there was 2 or 3 at least free kicks. How many have we scored recently? So screw James Ward-Prowse. We've got Sarr to bang in the
We'll
free
knock
kicks.
that out of him. Don't worry. We'll stop him scoring free kicks.
Yeah. Guys, I've got to run because I can hear my wife downstairs. She is literally going to kill me. So, HG, thanks for joining me.
No, your problem, no problem. Your problem, no welcome. There you go. There's my sign off for tonight. It's Friday, and I'm super tired. But yeah, it was fun as always.
Thanks, man. Davo, thanks for joining. Sorry for calling you Dave. Do you mind being called Davo? It's just stuck now.
It came from Franco originally because he said, "Well, you're Dave. You're in Australia, and in the national curriculum of Australian nicknames, you have to put an O at the end of every name. So it's Davo, mate. And naturally, monotonal voice that I have. If you're talking like you're asking the question at the end of the sentence, you sound like an Australian. So I'm going to go downstairs and play a bit of cricket with the boys. I'm England, they're Australia. We'll be done in 5 minutes."
Fantastic. Well, enjoy your day there. John, thanks for joining.
Thank you very much for having me. Good to have you on the YouTube tonight, Brendan, hosting.
Yes, it's been great fun, and do listen out for what we hope will be a podcast on Sunday evening with the game. We still don't know if the game will happen, but if it does, there'll be a podcast. If it doesn't, we're going to get together with the same old Spurs boys and have a Spurs quiz, and so do look out for that. There will be a podcast out with no football. We're not doing podcasts. Also, look out for our YouTube show on Monday. Caller may be back in the chair, or maybe Shan, maybe me. Who knows? It's the joy of it all. You have to tune in to find out. But stay safe, and as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
There we go.